All right, so welcome to Getting to the Root of It. This is a new video series brought to you by Mental Dental and Colgate, dedicated to explore the different career options available for dental students after their graduation. And today I'm joined by my good friend Taiseer Sulaiman, and Dr. Sulaiman is a tenured associate professor and the director of the Advanced Operative Dentistry and Biomaterials Research at the Adams School of Dentistry, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he earned his clinical certificate in operative dentistry and his PhD in dental materials from the Department of Prosthetic Dentistry and Biomaterial Sciences from the University of Turku in Finland, in collaboration with the Department of Operative Dentistry at UNC. Dr. Sulaiman is a wet-handed clinician and a researcher who's passionate about bridging the gap between dental research and clinical application. Dr. Sulaiman's research focus is on dental ceramics, adhesion, cements, color and appearance in dentistry, and biomimetics. He has published over 80 peer-reviewed articles, abstracts, and book chapters. He's a member of many academies, including the Academy of Operative Dentistry, where he serves as counselor to the Academy, the Society of Color and Appearance in Dentistry, IADR, AADR, and the American Dental Association. He's lectured on numerous national and international stages and serves as a reviewer for many peer-reviewed journals. Thanks so much for joining us, Taiseer. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much, Ryan, for having me. I'm excited. Looking forward to speaking with you.
Absolutely. So you've been certainly a great friend to me throughout my time in dental school, one of the best professors I've had. And so I think this is a great opportunity just to kind of share your experiences with dental students who may be thinking about a career, not so much in general dentistry, but maybe more in academia, more in research, more in exploring the world of dental materials. So maybe first, can you talk a little bit more beyond the introduction about what you do and kind of what brought you to that career path?
Well, this is a topic that I'm, always excited to talk about, really. I'm very passionate about dental education. I'm passionate about academia. I think it's something that you learn early on. I think when you are a dental student, I always enjoyed learning on difficult topics, mm-hmm. and then translating that information or explaining it to my colleagues. I had a few very close friends, even at that time, told me that you really have a very good ability to dilute something that's very complicated. And I think that's where I realized that, this is something that I really enjoy doing, and so I would really put in the extra time and effort to learn. Again, not all topics are easy to learn as a dental student, but then to have the ability to go back and explain it, it increased my ability to understand the topic very well and knowledge about it. And also it allowed me to maybe explore my teaching ability early on then. And so, ever since graduation back in 2003, actually, I immediately wanted to go into academia and build my path there. And of course, it's not an easy route. And, we'll talk about the positives and the negatives of it as we move along. But, at the school, as you asked, I've been at UNC for the past 10 years. I did my residency there. And then, they I guess they saw something in me and they wanted me to stay, and I did stay, and I was honored to have that invitation extended. I've been really focusing on multiple things at the same time, which can get, of course, very stressful. But I'm a wet-handed clinician, like you described. I see patients and I work with patients clinically, so that's very important to me. I didn't want to just teach things theoretically. I wanted to actually be working on patients. I've developed a biomaterials laboratory at the school. Our school has a very rich history in the area of dental materials, led by giants in the area, and kind of took a break, if you will. And then I came back and kind of revamped that area a little bit. And we built the biomaterials laboratory really focusing on maximizing the clinical relevance of in vitro testing. And that's something that has received a lot of attention and respect from the literature, from peer-reviewed journals, because it's very hard to get clinical trials going in our modern day and time due to multiple reasons. So we have a chewing simulator machine, a toothbrush simulator machine. We try to, again, mimic the oral environment to the best possible. And every project that I work on, again, it's always a great learning experience. I have a wonderful team of a PhD student and master students that I work with in the school, and colleagues that I collaborate with all the time. And, it's just a wonderful learning experience there. And I always say research never stops. Just this morning, I was just doing a quick search on a topic that I was interested in researching. And so, despite it being a holiday today, it never really ends. And we got projects as we speak going on in the laboratory right now. So over the weekend, we had to go and see in the lab and make sure that the equipments are working and functioning properly, because it's a 24-hour process. And so there's really no stop to research, and it's wonderful. I really do enjoy it, and just the collaboration process with other wonderful educators and researchers just teaches you a lot, and to be able to take that information, and again, it's most clinically relevant. If I don't find clinical relevance in the topics that we research, I'm really not interested in it. I want to be able to stand in front of a clinician and explain some of the things related to everyday materials that we use in our practice, and to receive the attention from the people that you're speaking to, and how hungry and thirsty they are for this kind of information that is very much needed in this area, is just a very fulfilling experience. It's wonderful. It makes you really, it makes all the pain go away. Let me put it that way. And it really helps you also excel in your clinical performance, because not only you're researching these materials, but you're also, as a clinician, you're applying them in the patient's mouth. And so you're not just preaching about these materials, you're actually applying them. And I think that's where clinicians relate to the most, is they want to know, how to select the proper material and also how to apply it. And so that's been really a wonderful experience and a blessing, and also allowed me to perform better for my patients, because again, every time I'm doing a specific procedure, I'm constantly repeating the things that I always talk about. And so in addition to those two, I'm of course teaching the students in the dental clinic is just the joy of my life. I mean, it's wonderful to be in the clinic. And I always used to say that, Ryan, you were one of my favorite dental students at the time, but now I have to update that statement and say you are one of my favorite orthodontists right now. And so, but I really enjoy being in the clinic with the DDS students and the graduate students, and just to have the ability to share some of the information and to show someone how to do something on a patient, and seeing the outcome, and seeing how the student learns, and seeing how the patient appreciates the effort. It's just, it's a wonderful and again, fulfilling experience that I really do enjoy. So those are the things that I really focus on as an academician at the university.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think some of the takeaways from what you're saying is it's really enriching for your own education, because everything comes full circle, where you get to learn first and then you apply it in the clinic, and then you get to share that with other clinicians, and then just also being very fulfilling, coming full circle, where someone saw something in you and now you're around these motivated students and graduate residents, and you get to see that the other side,
Absolutely.
see how motivated they are as well. So I think that's great. I wanted to ask you about, again, from that introduction, over 80 peer-reviewed articles, abstracts, and book chapters. I mean, that's incredible. I hope people realize how much of an achievement that is. Are there any, recent publications that you have that you're really passionate about that you just want to talk about with the listeners real quick?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, this has happened over the past 5 or 6 years, actually. And so it didn't grow on a tree. Again, a lot of sweat, blood, and tears, but it's a team effort. Honestly, I mean, I can't take the credit for myself. I mean, it's I have, again, I always try to surround myself with people that motivate me and that I learn from, and that inspire me. And so it's just been, it's been, I think it really requires, it requires an understanding of who do you want to learn from first and foremost. Okay. And so you try to reach out to those people and collaborate with them, but then who do you want to, hand over that information to as well? Who do you see that can be, someone that is, one of the next big researchers or one of the best educators or upcoming clinicians? And so you have to really have an eye for that, because if you spot that person, it's kind of like any agent, right? I mean, you find that talent and you're capable of triggering and encouraging that person to become who they really can become. I think that is the most rewarding thing you can do as an academician or as a teacher or even as a mentor. And so I'm kind of in mid-career, if you will. So I still look up to the mentors and wonderful educators that I still look to learn from all the time. And then again, it's that other side of it where you're trying to inspire others to follow in your path. Unfortunately, academia has been not a popular selection for a lot of the upcoming clinicians or dentists that graduate from dental school. And I think if you look back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we had icons and giants and that defined dentistry to where it is today. And a lot of those happen to be from the University of North Carolina. And so it was really growing up and seeing that was very inspiring, and it's like, wow, one day I want to become like one of these wonderful icons and contribute to our profession. And so I think you have to have really the passion for teaching. I think that's how it starts off. I don't know if you remember, but I think I asked you that question when you were rising senior as a dental student. And I remember. And I asked you, I said, Ryan, do you like to teach? And you said, yeah, sure, of course. And so that's the first question that you ask. And it's not, I don't take that question lightly, and I don't respect an easy answer. I really want to look deep into that person's eyes and see if they really have that passion for it. Because there are many that probably don't know it, but they would be wonderful dental educators. And because they probably did not receive the proper mentorship or direction, they just feel like, well, I'm just going to graduate and go into being a clinician in my clinic. And again, it's thinking that I'm probably as a teacher or an educator, I won't be paid very well or compensated. So I think that is one of the major challenges is compensation. If you look at the differences between a fresh graduate in a clinical environment and in a university environment, the difference really is not that big. I mean, you start earning big bucks as a clinician, but you have to have a few years under your belt and you have to have a great reputation, and you have to, it doesn't come by a snap of a finger, and so it's a very stressful life and very challenging. And in academia, it's the same thing. You might start off at a very low bracket, but then if you work your way up, there are opportunities through research, through speaking engagements, through working even part-time in a dental clinic, that you can make that extra income. So I don't think money should be a problem. Let me just put it that way. I think if you look at it very carefully, you can figure that out. Now, 5-10 years down the line, are you going to be earning as well as a successful clinician? I don't think so. I mean, that's where the disparity comes. And again, some have learned to find their way that they can do half and half. For example, being full-time in academia might be challenging to some in their mid-career, and they want to make a higher earning, and that's understandable. And because of the lack of funding and support for dental educators at the university setting, I think we're losing a lot of phenomenal or potentially phenomenal educators because they're just buried in the clinical world, and right. Very few of them would document their cases and go out to teach about it. And that's great. But you want that impact to be directed to students, where you're really training the next generation. Because a lot of the CE courses that we do, we got clinicians that have 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience. You might affect them one way or another. You might influence their decision on certain things. But when you're teaching a first year, second year, third, fourth year dental student, you're impacting their entire life. And so it really is a different experience, and the impact is much higher if you're, starting from the roots of it, right? And so,
Right.
and so that's why it really becomes, just how much passion you have for the job. I couldn't imagine myself working 4 or 5 days in a clinic. I would, it would only fulfill one aspect of my dream, and I would, if I went back, I would never select a full-time clinical practice. That's just who I am. I just, there are things that to me I can't translate to dollar signs, and so I truly enjoy the aspect of doing the research. I enjoy teaching, and so and there are many that share that view with me and that passion, and I'm not the only one, of course, and so, but it has become very, very challenging. Again, before, you're capable of retaining many faculty because the earning was very well, but with the increased expenses of living and challenges of life, and you see that the compensation is not equivalent, and so it becomes very challenging. And that's why I always say we have the best dental educators are outside of academia. And it's an unfortunate statement, but I truly believe that. And if you've traveled around and if you've met a lot of people when you are lecturing, you get to see phenomenal clinicians and people that come with wonderful ideas and questions. And I'm like, gosh, I really wish you were teaching this, or you're talking about this to the students. And they're like, well, we don't have the time to do it, and it's expensive for us to leave our clinic, and we donate our time maybe once a month to that's not really doing much. So that's really is the challenge right there.
Right. And exacerbated by the increase in dental school expenses and
Absolutely.
the weight of the loans and everything, just making that monetary issue even more in the forefront of students' minds. Unfortunately, like you said, we lose a lot of extraordinary potential. I want to ask you, were there any like defining moments where you decided, I don't want to do that 4 to 5 days of clinical work every week? That's just not for me. What was there a defining moment for you that swayed you towards academia in the first place?
Well, I don't think it was. I don't think it was the clinical practice or the stress that comes with it that really drove me to academia. It's not that. I love working on patients, and I love, performing restorative dentistry is really the discipline that I love to do. And so I think it was really just for the love of teaching and the love of doing research. And so when I early on experiencing that, my father is also an academician and also a PhD holder and also a clinician. And so I got to see early on his balance in life related to clinical care and related to teaching and mentoring students. And I thought it was a wonderful experience. And I learned a lot from him, how he managed and balanced that life. And so, I think I spotted, and wanted to do that early on by just seeing him perform. And so, when I graduated from dental school, all I wanted to go immediately into academia and derive my path there. And being in academia, you do want to have more a training on research, and that's why you go and do the master's degree and you do the PhD. If you're not in academia or you don't want to stay in there, you want to be a clinician, maybe that will be a waste of time, especially like if you're doing a PhD. I can't imagine you as a clinician wanting to do a PhD. Very rarely you'll find somebody do that. But, I think it comes step by step. I started off by being a group practice leader in a dental school, and then, and then growing from that, understanding the ins and outs out of it and what my limitations were. I wanted to do a residency, and I think the love for dental materials came along as like, half of our work, actually more than half of our work, involves materials. And I'm like, I have no clue what these materials are, how they work. We get taught on them our first year in dental school. We don't even know what a cavity is, and here we are talking about dental adhesion, right? And
Right.
so there's no clinical application of what we learned, and that's why, and still that challenge remains to this day in the topic of teaching dental materials. But it's like, how can I be using this in the patient's mouth without knowing what it is and not knowing really how to apply it properly? And so by getting to know the very basic properties of these materials enables you to make the proper selection, but also getting to know how to apply them will maximize the longevity. And that's what patients want. And so you kind of put that formula together. You're like, a composite can last 2 years, but if I did it this way, it could probably last 5 to 10 years. And so that's where now the link between science and research and clinical application is turning into outcome and benefits for your patient. And at the end, word of mouth will spread and you'll become that expert clinician on a specific area. And that's where the, extra income starts coming in. And so, and then you get, asked by manufacturers, as a key opinion leader, becoming a consultant. And because you have that ability to, to explain or to link research and science to clinical application. And so, it wasn't hard to make the decision for me, honestly. I mean, it was, I think I knew that I wanted to do that. And again, it started early on. I can remember maybe my second, third year as a dental student, just explaining the area. I think it was probably anatomy or physiology, something like that. That was so complicated for some of my colleagues to understand. And I said, well, look, this is how I interpret this, and explain that to them. You're like, wow, this is a lot easier. Why cannot our instructor just say it like that? And so again, the reason, and that is again a major problem in academia, is that you might have people that are not as passionate, that don't want to be in another environment, and this is maybe a safe haven for them, where they can just go and perform the same thing over and over again. And unfortunately, that translates very negatively to the students. And some of the students are like, academia, and become like so and so. And it's like, well, that's not that, that might be an outlier, I mean,
Right.
Some might say, I remember, my dad was in dental school and he got taught the same thing by this professor. I'm like, this was like 20 years ago, and that's true, unfortunately. And I'm not saying I'm good and others are bad. It's just the reality of dental education, that I'm really concerned about where we're headed in dental education, because we are not capable of recruiting. We're not capable of retaining great educators. And now you're filling in the bodies in these positions, really. And so if you miss out on that motivation and that inspiring character, as an instructor or faculty, students will be driven away from the discipline, also from the career. So that's a very, very challenging, aspect right now, that I hope I'm wrong on it. So, but we'll see how it goes.
But you're right. It's a potential cycle if, those slots aren't filled, and then perpetuates the stereotype of the boring faculty or whatever. And then students saying, I don't want to be like that. I want to do something more exciting or whatever. And then you lose out on that talent. So like you said, I mean, hopefully people who are passionate about education don't have to think about giving up the clinical experience, because you're still doing that, or give up on discovering something that they're passionate about, which you're able to do. If anything, you have a more well-rounded career because you're investing in these different avenues of research, didactics, and still getting the clinical experience, applying what you're learning in those other two aspects. And so
absolutely
if there's a dental student listening that is potentially interested in academia, do you have any advice for them, considering their field, what they should do, next steps, if they're interested in making this decision to join academia?
Absolutely. Look, I think I've tried to tap on the area of just earning an income. I think it's a very important topic to talk about, right? And of course, that was just scratching the surface. There's much more to it. But I think the advice that I would have for a dental student, as they're moving along in their dental education, is if they do see that inspiring faculty or person that they really got to know a little bit deeper in terms of it's not just a lecture and then they move on. They went and had a conversation with him or her, or they went and saw them perform at a continuing educational event, or I'm speaking on the stage, or if they're in the lecturing circuit, and they really enjoy that kind of presence and they enjoy that kind of life. Just go and investigate further, give it a chance, ask about it, ask and take multiple opinions and views. The flip side of it is that faculty should be on the lookout for these kind of students first and foremost, because they should be the ones guiding them into that path. But if you don't get that, that push, then you put in a little bit of effort, because it might really change the way that you envision things, and might change your path and your goal and your aim in your future career. And so I think it's very important to ask questions, get to know their lifestyle, their life balance, family life, and how they can, control between it. And then as an academician, get all these details, but also as a full-time clinician, find that mentor or that person that you can ask before making that decision. Because if you don't ask these questions, you're now graduating and you really don't know what you're doing. And so if you don't have a good mentor or dentist to work with in a clinic or associate with, you don't have a good academician or somebody, that faculty that you look up to, you're just defaulting yourself into working maybe in any practice, or and just accepting any offer. And now you might get caught up in everyday life, and now you're buried into this. And you could have been a tremendous talent if you had chosen a different path, or somebody had helped guide you to it. So ask all the questions, get to know all the details, attend continuing education events. If you feel that you really love to be on stage and to teach and to educate, and you link that to what you're doing with your students as well, and with patient care, I think it can be a very enriching experience and very fulfilling. It keeps you very busy. And it's definitely not a circle of the same thing, doing it over and over again. Every day is a different day for me. It's exciting. And if I get bored of doing one thing, I jump onto the other, and until I miss the first thing that I did. But if you're just in the clinic and you're just doing the same thing over and over, it might be your thing. You love working on patients. And I've met and been inspired by many clinicians that are phenomenal, and I wouldn't imagine them doing anything in life, because they're providing phenomenal service to patients. But then there are others that are, you see just the shine disappears from them, and they just become caught up in this everyday life, just doing everyday clinic care for their patients. Their passion for the profession is really diminished, and so that's where even then I might encourage them to look into academia, and maybe go and teach at the school a day or two and see how you like it. We have many that come in to dental education after 5, 10, 15 years of clinical practice. And it can burn you out very quickly in the clinical world. And so they might find, although you can get burned out also very quickly in the academic world as well. But ask questions. If you do get into academia, focus on the things that you love and the things that matter. Stay away from the politics of things. It's unfortunate that politics might take over a lot in dental schools, and it might be very discouraging in a lot of instances. But it's, I try to just stay away from all that and associate myself with people that I can learn from, that inspire me. I am where I am because I was standing on the shoulder of giants. I came and saw, people that I admired and loved and read about their work a lot. And when I saw them giving lectures for my first time, I was amazed. It was wonderful to learn from them. And especially at that time, I've had a few years of experience. I know who can teach well or who can't. And when I saw that, that's when I started studying each of these individuals. And there are 4 or 5 of them that really had a huge impact on my life. And, I can name some at our school with Dr. Ed Swift or Harold Hyman or Terry Donovan. These are people that, again, I sat down and studied their performance. And if you see the way that I talk or present, it was really a kind of a medley of all 3 or 4 of them together. but what I also did is I asked them for feedback and I asked them for criticism. And I would remember, for Dr. Hyman would take notes, or Dr. Donovan, they come and tear me apart sometimes and say, you
Wow.
said this, this was your mistake here. This is what you should do here. I would change this slide there. And then you take that and you listen. And that's really how you really become and learn, as a presenter or educator, because that's the whole part of it. Because if you can do that very well, that means your audience will accept you, and you have to know the level of your audience as well, whether it's a DDS student or a 10-year plus experienced clinician who you're speaking to. And so again, it's paying attention to these details that can early on make you appreciate where you're at. If you really don't ask the right questions, let's say you go into academia just because, well, let me try it out, you're probably not going to find, your passion. You're not going to find your way. You will get bored of it, and you will probably try to find a different path. But I think it's, I am where I am today is because I asked a lot of questions. I had really no egos on many things. I accept criticism, good or bad, so and just listen very carefully, learn from my mistakes, and it's really been a pleasant, joyful ride for me.
Mhm. Well, Taiseer, it's been so great talking to you again. I really appreciate you sharing all this stuff. You're definitely an inspirational academician. I hope people see that, and thank you for just sharing your journey with everybody. I hope this touches some dental students in a positive way, and yeah, it was just great talking to you again.
Absolutely. It has been absolutely my pleasure. If you wanted to share my contact with anyone,
Please, yes.
my email is just my last name, Sulaiman @unc.edu. Taiseer Sulaiman. My first and last name. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I don't post what I eat and drink or travel. I really, I share my experiences in at the dental school or with students, or what we publish hot off the press, or even things that are just off the bench top, and not even published yet. If I think it's useful, I think social media is a wonderful platform to share that information, and it should be free. Knowledge should be free, and science should be free. And so it's just again, sharing CE opportunities and people that I really learn from and inspire. I like to share my experience with them on social media. And so if anyone is interested, just feel free to reach out in any way I can help. I will be more than happy to.
Great. Absolutely. We'll put all of those links and social media pages attached to this video so everyone can check you out. Because like you said, it's so important to have a mentor, someone to ask questions and learn more about it yourself. So, well, this is really great. Thanks, Taiseer. Thanks so much for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.